My older sister and I are two cat demons. After accidentally wandering into the imperial palace, she became the emperor's beloved noble consort, doted on endlessly. As for me, I was scooped up into the arms of the mighty general and carried out of the palace. For 3 years, I was the apple of his eye, cherished beyond compare. Then the general returned from the border with a woman in tow, and for the first time ever, the emperor flew into a rage with my sister, in the dead of night. My sister hopped onto the roof of my house. Mien mien, I've absorbed enough dragon energy. You coming with me? I swiftly bundled up all the gold, silver, and jewels, slung the bundle over my back, and nodded, if you're leaving, I'm right behind you. In the blink of an eye, word spread that the noble consort had passed away and that the general's mansion was in mourning for its mistress. Rumor had it the emperor's wrath shook the heavens, laying waste to millions. The great general, hell-bent on finding his beloved wife, led his troops to besiege the imperial capital. The whole world teetered on the brink of collapse. My sister and I were two cat demons who'd relied on each other for survival in the mountains. In search of opportunities to advance our cultivation, we'd agreed to venture down the mountain together. It was my fault I'd greedily gone after the koi fish in the imperial garden, only to slip and fall into the water, in a panic. My sister had no choice but to shift into her human form to save me. Little did we know, Emperor Song Jin had happened to wander into the imperial garden that very day. One glance was all it took for him to bestow the title of noble consort upon my sister. My cultivation was far weaker than hers. Drenched to the bone, I'd been so overwhelmed by the emperor's dragon energy that I couldn't even stand up. That was when General Liang Jingyun, passing by, had scooped me up into his arms, carried me out of the palace, and made me the mysterious lady of his mansion. In the dead of night, I slipped out of my clothes, padded softly on cat-like feet, and leaped up onto the roof. I scampered along the walls of the general's mansion all the way to our rendezvous point at the southwest corner of the palace wall. On the way, I'd spotted a lost butterfly and chased it around for a while. By the time I arrived, my sister Li Susu was already perched on the wall, lazily licking the gaps between her claws. What took you so long? I sighed. Don't ask, Liang Jingyun is on his way back to the capital, and I trailed off, glancing up at my sister's face. After a moment's hesitation, I forced the words out. The messenger said he's bringing a woman back from the northern border. I saw her portrait, it's exactly the same as the one you showed me before. That portrait had been hidden in a secret chamber in the imperial study, guarded by layers of heavily armed soldiers. Legend had it that when Song Jin had been held hostage in the northern border as a prince, he'd suffered unspeakable torment and this woman had saved his life. My sister froze mid-lick, her soft paw slamming down on the wall in frustration, scratching at the bricks. When will she arrive in the capital? I flicked my tail. In 3 days at the earliest. My sister frowned, lifting her gaze to mine. I have no interest in fighting another woman over a man. Our raccoon cat clan has never stooped to such nonsense. I twitched the tip of my ear, curiosity piqued. So what are you saying? I don't want to stay here anymore. 3 years down the mountain, and we've been cooped up in this tiny little spot the whole time. She was absolutely right. It was a far cry from the freedom our raccoon cat clan was born to enjoy. Originally, things had been fine. Song Jin and Liang Jingyun had spoiled us rotten. But now that other women were in the picture, it was clear they'd never treat us the same way again. I nodded firmly. Wherever you go, I go. I'm with you all the way. My sister lifted her paw to pat my cat's head. Good. Pack your things over these next 3 days. Once we've laid eyes on that woman, we're out of here. She paused, as if a sudden thought had occurred to her, her paw hovering above my head. Mien mien. You won't get distracted by something fun and forget this time, will you? My cheeks flushed bright red instantly. I flicked my tail rapidly back and forth, hurrying to defend myself. Absolutely not. You have to trust me. My sister nodded, looking somewhat skeptical. All right then, just don't forget. With that, she stood up, leaped down from the palace wall, and darted back toward the noble consort's palace. As for me, I scrambled back along the roof, retracing my steps to the general's mansion. Once I was back in my bedroom, I grabbed the key to the general's private treasury and headed straight for the storeroom. This one's nice. This one's even better. Ooh, this is expensive and light. Perfect for taking with us. I spent 3 straight nights packing, and still had to handle all the affairs of the mansion during the day. We really did need to leave, if we stayed here much longer. Even a hyperactive monkey would be worn out, let alone a cat who needed 10 hours of sleep a day. Thankfully, today was the day Liang Jingyun was finally coming home. I led all the servants out to greet him at the gate. It had been over half a year since I'd seen him. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit excited to see him again. I called out his name cheerfully, my voice ringing out, Liang Jing. But the second the words left my mouth, that excitement vanished without a trace. Liang Jingyun dismounted from his horse, glanced briefly in my direction, then turned right back around to lift the curtain of the sedan chair behind him. "Missen, we've arrived." A pair of snow-white, delicate hands emerged from the sedan chair, followed by a slender figure as graceful as a willow branch in the wind, and finally, a face of such fragile beauty it could break any man's heart. "Thank you, General Liang." She turned around, and the second she caught sight of my furious expression, she let out a startled gasp and stumbled backward into Liang Jingyun's arms. Liang Jingyun steadied her, his voice filled with concern. "Are you hurt?" And Yiru shook her head, glanced at me, then lowered her eyes demurely. "It's just, that servant girl looks so fierce, she startled me a little." Liang Jingyun lifted his gaze to look at me, his brows furrowing slightly. A surge of rage erupted in my chest instantly. "Liang Jingyun, let her go this instant." Who the hell is she calling a servant girl? For 3 years, Liang Jingyun had catered to my every whim. He'd always said I was the apple of his eye, a treasure sent to him by the heavens. In the 3 years since we'd come down the mountain, I'd ruled the general's mansion with an iron fist. No one had ever dared to treat me with anything less than the utmost respect. This was the first time anyone had ever dared to insult me to my face, let alone right in front of Liang Jingyun. I'd thought Liang Jingyun would take my side, but all he did was sigh impatiently, his voice soft but firm. "Mian Mian, stop making a scene." "A scene? I'm making a scene." Every single servant in the mansion was standing at the gate, watching as the woman who'd been their mistress for 3 years was humiliated by a woman who hadn't even stepped foot inside the mansion yet. And Liang Jingyun, he'd chosen her side. "Missen, let me help you inside to rest first." Liang Jingyun held out his hand solicitously, and Yiru blushed and nodded, shooting me a triumphant look as she walked past. I was so angry I could explode. No self-respecting raccoon cat could ever stand for such a blatant provocation. I shot forward, slamming my hand down to block their path. I glared at Liang Jingyun, my eyes blazing with fury. "Liang Jingyun, I'm asking you one question. Am I still the mistress of this mansion?" I pointed at Yiru, every word dripping with ice. "I say this woman is not allowed to set foot inside this door." Liang Jingyun looked at me with a complicated expression. After a long, tense moment, he spoke, his voice like a knife to my heart. "Li Mian Mian, I have never actually taken you as my legal wife." Half my heart turned cold, as if a fishbone had lodged itself in my throat, stuck, painful, impossible to swallow or spit out. Tears welled up in my eyes instantly. "You're saying you never married me? Then what had that impromptu wedding in the dilapidated temple been, when I'd risked my life to save his, and he'd knelt before me and begged me to be his wife?" A flicker of guilt flashed across Liang Jingyun's face. He let go of Yiru's hand and took a step toward me. I thought he was going to hug me. Instead, he leaned in, his lips brushing against my ear, and whispered a single sentence that sounded like a clap of thunder. "A mere cat pet, what makes you think you're worthy of being the general's lawful wife?" My entire body went rigid, as if I'd been plunged into an icy abyss. I stared at his retreating back as he helped Yiru inside. So angry I couldn't even speak, I stormed back to my room, fuming. I figured with Yiru by his side, Liang Jingyun had long since forgotten about his old flame, so I shifted into my cat form, leaped up onto the wall, and scaled the palace walls to get inside. I searched high and low for my sister, but couldn't find her anywhere. Instead, I spotted a palace maid hurrying past the door of the imperial study. Could she be inside the imperial study? I crept silently over to the window of the imperial study, climbed up the tree outside, and peered in. Sure enough, there she was. My sister was standing by the wall behind the desk, the door to the secret chamber wide open. She was clutching that portrait in her hands, tears streaming down her face. Who is she? Song Jin stood rooted to the spot, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. What does it matter if you tear it up? She's already back in the capital. The portrait is meaningless now. My sister's face turned pale as a sheet, but she lifted her chin stubbornly, asking one final time. I'll ask you this once: over these past 3 years, all the favors and affection you showered on me, was any of it real? Song Jin's gaze swept across my sister's tear-streaked face, and finally, he spoke. His voice cold and hard as stone. Never once. That bastard, once upon a time, he'd spoiled my sister rotten. When she'd mentioned she loved the bright colors of Western region silk, Song Jin had spent a fortune covering the walls of her palace with it. Later, she'd sharpened her claws on that silk. But when Song Jin found out, he'd only praised her. Susu, you've scratched it beautifully. I think it looks even better than before. Even I'd felt guilty listening to that. My sister loved soft furs, so Song Jin had thrown open the doors to his private treasury and let her pick whatever she wanted. He'd even had the furs of all the prey he'd hunted since ascending the throne sewn into a single huge blanket, a vibrant grey pelt that covered the entire floor of the noble consort's bedroom. And now, he hadn't even laid eyes on a Nyiru yet, and already he'd turned on my sister. Scum. Palace maids led my sister back to her bedroom. While Song Jin stood there alone for a long time, his eyes filled with unspeakable sorrow. Tch, too little, too late. Even a dog wouldn't care about this kind of belated affection. Bah, not even a dog. If I was this angry on her behalf, I couldn't even imagine how my sister felt. I was practically seething with rage, for both of us. I climbed down from the tree and returned to the general's mansion. Sure enough, Liang Jingyun hadn't even bothered to come check on me. I channeled all my anger into packing, shoving even more gold and jewels into my bundle. Selling all this would be enough to buy our raccoon cat clan a lifetime supply of dried fish. Halfway through the thought, I suddenly remembered the mountain was gone, and my sister and I were the only ones left of the raccoon cat clan. Midnight arrived once again. The master of the mansion was home, but I'd lost my title as his lady. Everyone was too busy fawning over the new miss and to spare me a second glance. 3 years of living together, and not a single person bothered to ask if I'd eaten dinner. A soft scuffling sound came from the roof above. Someone pried loose a few roof tiles. I sniffled, feeling a wave of overwhelming sadness wash over me, and called out to her softly, "Sister." She pried loose a couple more tiles, then shifted into her cat form and jumped down inside. Mien mien. I've absorbed enough dragon energy. I left a decoy in my place in the palace. Are you coming with me, or do you want to stay here a little longer? My sister had heard me gush about Liang Jingyun countless times before. Seeing how miserable I looked now, she must have thought I was reluctant to leave. I shook my head vigorously. No, I'm coming with you. Let's get out of here together. She frowned, glancing around the room. Liang Jingyun's back. Didn't he stay with you? I'd been fine until she brought it up. The mention of him only made me angrier. That woman in Song Jin's portrait is in the mansion right now. Liang Jingyun is catering to her every whim, and he said I'm just a cat pet, not worthy of being the general's lawful wife. I gave up half my cultivation to save his life. He knelt before me in that broken temple and swore he'd give me everything, even his life. That's why I agreed to be his wife. Sister, he went back on his word. I clung to the hem of her dress, sobbing pitifully. A loud bang echoed through the room as something slammed down on the table. I jumped, startled. I took a closer look and saw that my sister was so angry that her tail had popped out involuntarily. Truly, all mortals are heartless beasts. Song Jin is like this. And Liang Jingyun is no different. She reached out to pat my head, her tone filled with frustration mixed with fondness. You've always been a bit slow-witted. Your cultivation progress is glacial, and you even got tricked into giving up half your cultivation base to save him. Now you can't even conjure a decoy body for yourself. Can you? I nodded miserably. No, I can't. For all her anger, my sister still raised her hand and began casting a spell beside the bed. In the blink of an eye, A girl with the same round face and cat-like eyes as me was sitting on the edge of the bed. I stared in amazement. Pointing at the decoy's slightly rounded belly. Why does she look like she's stuffed full of food? I got a light tap on the head for that, full of my sister's exasperation. It's not a full stomach, you fool. I blinked, confused. A sharp glint flashed in my sister's eyes. If he refuses to acknowledge you as his wife, then I'll send him a grand gift he'll never forget. I didn't fully understand what she meant, but whatever my sister said was always right. I'll listen to you. After my sister left, I was overcome with hunger, so I pushed open the door and stepped out of the room. Once upon a time, everyone had scurried around me, calling me madam and fawning over me, but now, the courtyard outside was completely empty and desolate, bar a bunch of snobbish sycophants. I walked over to the kitchen door, planning to grab some pastries to fill my stomach, but as I looked up, I saw Nyuru standing there with her maids, chatting and laughing with the head chef. My eyes darted to the kitchen counter, and there, sitting right on it, was a plate of my favorite fried small yellow croakers. Because I loved this dish so much, Liang Jingyun had once ordered the kitchen to keep a plate ready for me at all times. I even remembered one time, when he'd watched me gobble them up happily, he'd pretended to be jealous and said, "You little glutton, your eyes are only for the fish, not even a glance for me." I'd nipped at his hand playfully, my mouth still full of fish, and retorted, "That's because you're not as tasty as the little yellow croakers." His eyes had darkened, and he'd lifted me onto the table, leaning in to capture my lips with his own. He'd growled at me, his voice low and teasing, "I'm not tasty, then you'd better taste me again, little cat pet." Seeing the plate of fried yellow croakers, I naturally assumed they were left for me, so I reached out to take them. One of Nyuru's maids tried to snatch the plate away, but how could a human ever be faster than a cat? In the end, the plate of fish ended up in my hands. I tilted my chin up, giving her a look of utter disdain. "You dare to fight me for food? You're not even worthy. Fighting a cat over fish, how ridiculous." And Nyuru's expression soured, but she put on a pitiful, virtuous look and spoke up. "If sister likes to eat this, I should let you have it, of course. But my family is from the northern border, and my mother used to make fried yellow croakers for me all the time when I was little. It's been so long since I've been home, I just wanted to taste a bit of my childhood. That's all." I frowned, growing impatient as she rambled on and on. What does that have to do with me? But to my annoyance, the maids and the chef standing nearby all looked at Nyuru with expressions of sympathy. Seriously, were they all brainless? I picked up the plate of yellow croakers and turned to leave, but as soon as I took one step, Nyuru grabbed the sleeve of my robe. "If you want to eat them, I can ask the chef to make you another platter." Her words trailed off as she suddenly shoved me hard. The plate of yellow croakers went flying, scattering everywhere, and I crashed into the doorframe with a loud thud. I was so dazed from the fall that I didn't even register what happened next until I saw Nyuru stagger backward as if she'd been pushed by an invisible force, nearly tumbling into the kitchen fire. I just managed to stand up when a figure suddenly darted out from behind me, brushing past me so roughly that I stumbled and hit the doorframe again. My cheek scraped against the wood, and blood welled up instantly. It hurt like hell, but instead of apologizing, the man swept past me in a blur and scooped Nyuru into his arms. "Missun, are you alright?" Liang Jingyun helped Nyuru up gently, his voice filled with concern. What was wrong with her? She was the one who'd pushed me first. But Nyuru nestled into his arms, looking as if she'd been terrified out of her wits. "I'm fine, General Liang. Please go check on Miss Mian quickly." Her words sounded like a plea for peace, but when her eyes met mine, they were filled with nothing but fear and triumph. Liang Jingyun lifted his gaze to me, his eyes blazing with suppressed anger. "Li Mian, are you causing trouble again? Meow 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 meow. What the hell did I do wrong?" But as I looked into Liang Jingyun's angry face, a sharp, bitter ache welled up in my chest, choking me so that all the angry words I'd been about to hurl at him died on my lips. Nyuru tugged at Liang Jingyun's sleeve, her voice soft and timid. "When I was at home, my mother used to make me fried yellow croakers all the time. Seeing them just now made me miss her so much. That's why I upset Miss Mian. It's not Miss Mian's fault at all, it was me who lost my balance." She's only acting this way because she cares about you, General." The more she spoke, the darker Liang Jingyun's face became. "Apologize." My voice trembled with rage. "You want me to apologize to her? It's just a plate of fried yellow croakers." I cut him off with a shout, my voice ringing out sharply. "Liang Jingyun." Tears glistened in my eyes as I stared at him, my vision turning red with anger and heartbreak. "It's just a plate of fried yellow croakers." A sharp, stabbing pain spread through my veins, creeping through my entire body until it felt like my chest was splitting open. Liang Jingyun looked at me coldly. For a split second, a flicker of guilt flashed in his eyes, but then it was gone, replaced by disappointment as he spoke, his tone hardening. "Li Mian, can you please stop being so childish and unreasonable?" I stared down at the scattered yellow croakers on the ground, feeling as if a huge hole had been torn open in my chest. It was just like that day, when I'd returned to the mountain to find my home gone forever. That night, I climbed silently over the wall and snuggled up to my sister, rubbing my cheek against her chin. "Sister, let's leave. Let's get out of here right now." Early the next morning, Song Jin personally led a grand procession on horseback to escort an Yiru into the palace. Liang Jingyun stood at the mansion gate, watching the procession for a long time. Finally, he turned around and asked, "Where is the madam?" A servant paused, thinking for a moment, before replying, "Madam has been locked in her room since yesterday. She hasn't come out once." Liang Jingyun frowned slightly. "She hasn't eaten either." The servant nodded. Liang Jingyun fell silent for a long while. Fine, with her stubborn temper, skipping a couple of meals might teach her a lesson. He lifted his foot to enter the mansion, but after taking a few steps, he paused. "Go to the kitchen and have them make a fresh plate of fried yellow croakers. I'll take them to her myself." The servant bowed to acknowledge the order, then hesitated for a moment before asking, "And, should we still call her madam from now on?" "No." The decoy body I'd infused with a drop of my essence and blood looked and acted exactly like me. With my sister's magic, I could even control it remotely from miles away. Right now, it was sitting on the bed, staring blankly at its slightly rounded belly. Liang Jingyun pushed open the door, carrying a plate of fried yellow croakers and a bowl of soup. As soon as he entered, my sister, who was already far outside the capital, activated the spell and the decoy body sprang to life. Its voice dripping with sarcasm, "General Liang, aren't you supposed to be accompanying your precious mission?" Liang Jingyun set the food down on the table. "Your favorite fried yellow croakers. Take them to your mission." "I wouldn't dare eat them." Liang Jingyun's jaw tightened, anger flashing in his eyes. "Li Mian, how long are you going to keep this up? Haven't I given you everything you could ever want these past few years? Keep this up." Who was the one causing trouble here? The decoy body stood up and walked step by step toward Liang Jingyun, its eyes burning bright red with rage. "Liang Jingyun, do you remember that year, when you were investigating a case for the emperor and were poisoned and shot by dozens of arrows? How I used half my cultivation base to save your life in that dilapidated temple." I still remembered that temple, with wind howling through the broken walls, only a half-burned candle left to light the darkness, and him lying there covered in blood. Liang Jingyun had taken my hand in his, smiling weakly as he swore his oath to me. "I offer my life as a betrothal gift, and my blood as a wedding dress. I, Liang Jingyun, hereby take the cat demon Mian as my wife, to stay by my side for eternity, never to be separated. If I ever break this vow, may I be struck dead by lightning, and my heart and liver torn out from my body." Later, he'd brought me back to the capital. Everyone in the city knew that the general's mysterious wife was the apple of his eye, cherished above all else. Once, a maid had asked me when I and Liang Jingyun would hold our wedding feast. I hadn't known the answer, so I'd run to ask him, but he'd made an excuse, saying that cat demons were rare, and a grand wedding would put me in too much danger. Back then, I'd been so touched, thinking he cared about me so deeply. Now I finally understood. Danger, protection, it was all just a lie. The truth was, I was nothing more than a lowly cat pet to him, not worthy of being the lawful wife of a great general. Liang Jingyun saw that the decoy body had fallen silent, so he softened his voice, trying to coax me, "Be good, and I'll have the kitchen make you fried yellow croakers every day from now on, okay? As if a single bite of fish could make me forget everything he'd done to me, the decoy body slapped his hand away, glaring at him furiously. Liang Jingyun, Li Mian Mian. I'm not some pet you can kick aside when you're bored and cuddle when you're lonely. Liang Jingyun lost his patience, his brows furrowed with irritation. What more do you want from me? What I want from now on is none of your business. General Liang. The decoy body turned to leave, but Liang Jingyun grabbed her arm roughly in his haste to stop her. I didn't want to be rough with you, but you leave me no choice. He pinned the decoy body down on the table, picked up the bowl of soup beside him, and forced every last drop down her throat. The small figure struggled violently against his grip. What did you feed me? Liang Jingyun's expression was cold and indifferent. Just something to drain all your demonic powers, that's all. He grabbed the decoy's round face in his big hand, his voice as cold as ice. Mian Mian, whether you like it or not, you're going to stay by my side for the rest of your life. I can give you everything except the title of wife. The decoy body spat out a curse, her voice full of hatred. You're insane, Liang Jingyun. Liang Jingyun leaned down, his hand tightening on her chin as he prepared to kiss her, but he froze abruptly, his eyes narrowing. Your face. A commotion of footsteps echoed outside the door, and moments later, Imperial guards burst into the room, interrupting them. Liang Jingyun let go of the decoy body, his face dark with displeasure. What is the meaning of this? The leading general spoke in a rush, his voice urgent. The noble consort and Miss An have both been poisoned. The only antidote requires the inner core of a raccoon cat demon as its main ingredient. We heard that there is a Miss Li staying at your mansion, General. His Majesty has ordered me to bring her to the palace at once. Liang Jingyun's head shot up, through the decoy body's eyes. I watched as he fell silent for a long moment, then slowly nodded his head. I will go with you to the palace. Liang Jingyun, you're going to help them kill me. Even though I'd known for a long time that he'd changed, his betrayal still left me gasping for breath, my chest tight with pain. Once a demon's inner core was cut out, death was inevitable. Liang Jingyun frowned, as if I was overreacting. I'm not going to kill you, we just need your inner core to save someone's life, that's all. Cut out my core, to save someone's life, that's all. Liang Jingyun stared at the decoy body intently, then spoke coldly after a long pause. You'll survive, I've tried it many times before. The Imperial Guard stepped forward to seize the decoy body. She screamed and cried, begging Liang Jingyun for mercy. Liang Jingyun, I'll die if you do this, I'll die. Her fingers dug into the hem of his robe, her knuckles turning white from the force of her grip, as if she could tear it to shreds. I'm pregnant, I'm carrying your child, I'm carrying your child. But Liang Jingyun bent down, leaning close to whisper my name softly. For a split second, I thought he'd changed his mind, that he would save me. But then he spoke, his voice cold and cruel. How can a human and a cat demon have a child together? Don't lie to me anymore, Mian Mian.